She's our intern. She's going to be just calling. There's a couple people I know that could not make it tonight and a couple more that we're just checking on. So we're just kind of giving a few minutes for people to join. So I'll just go over the slide. So I'm guessing you all probably had a chance to read it. I'm just going to share that, and then I'll share just a few other details. So make sure it's a confidential location. So for you and just for the sake of the other participants as well. And then please make sure that your microphone is muted, which you all looks like have done, at least on my end. If you need any assistance, like just unmuting or anything like that, we can always walk you through that. The button is on the bottom of your screen. And then if you can start to just turn your cameras on, that would be great too. I'd love to see your faces. And there will be times like with this material that I really want to make sure that you can turn your cameras off when needed, because sometimes to drop into emotions, you actually kind of need to be able to do that. So you are going to have some of the freedom. We just have to, insurance requires that we kind of see your face and can verify that it's you. So if you have any problems with that as well, just let me know. And then just remember that this will be recorded, but in speaker view only. And love that we already have a puppy in our in our group too. So just the speaker will be recorded. We'll edit the rest of the stuff out, but that way you guys can watch and rewatch. So especially as we do experiential stuff is when it's more important. And obviously if we're walking somebody through an experiential thing, it's going to be a little choppy, cutting in and out, just so that your voice and face are protected. But we want you to be able to rewatch that stuff, because it's really, your nervous system learns through repetition plus emotion. So you really do have to feel it to heal it. And so we want you to be able to do that, but to be able to do that again. So again, Colleen's our intern. She'll be kind of leading and managing the chat. She'll also be in touch via email, kind of following up with just different homework and different worksheets and things like that. And then Kelly is also a therapist who's going to be observing our group as well. So, well, our next slide, which Colleen will put up in just a second, but one of the things with doing this work, there can be just really tender things that people share. And so would love to be able to throw up some support. So if you guys can, just look down at the bottom. If you're familiar with Google Meet already, great. If not, there's a chat box down at the bottom. And if you hit that, you can put messages in there, and we've got another screen that shares it, but I'll just share it while she's kind of getting a hold of folks. But emotional support. So some of the don'ts are, it's not giving unsolicited advice or shoulds or shouldn'ts or things like that. It's more comments about, oh, I'm so with you, or that's really resonating with me. Thank you so much for sharing. It's really impactful when you share something and you see that it really impacts other people as well. And you don't have to share anything in this group if you don't want to either, but when you do, it's just really nice to get support. Another one, if you can hover in the bottom of your screen, you'll see an emoji button. That's another way of sharing support. And other times so you can just hit the smiley face there, and it'll just give you different options. So you can celebrate something, throw up some love, or even some laughter. Hopefully we'll have some of that too. So just know those are some options that you can do as well. Yes. Okay. Okay, well, great. Well, I am so glad that you guys have all taken the jump to do this. I know groups have been so phenomenally healing for me, and so I'm really excited for the people that are able to join this. I hope it'll be really impactful. There's something about hearing other people's stories that leads you to aspects of your own that you might not really be aware of. So I'm just excited that you've taken that that leap to do that. Also, so part of these sessions, it's actually learning to listen to your body. So if at any point during this, you feel like I need to use the restroom, or I need to get a snack, I need to get some water, I need to stretch, I'm going to give you, this is your full permission to do what your body needs when you need it. I think we all have what I'd like to call it the classroom freeze effect, where I think a lot of our main conferences, churches, schools, it's all, you have to sit still and listen or it's disrespectful. But I want you to have the freedom to be able to move as you need. And that's just kind of a part of this. And I hope through this, you'll also be more aware that your body's been communicating your whole life in ways that you might not have been aware of. Okay. Okay, sorry, just checking it. It was Colleen. Looks like we got one more. joining. Okay, also just want to say some of you have been on this journey for a while. Some of this stuff might be totally new. But there will be time for questions. You can always throw questions in the chat as well. And when you do that, we'll just get to questions as much as we can. So definitely don't hold back if you've got the question. Feel free to do that. So, okay. Well, I think we'll get started with who is here so far. And again, I think I know a few more that we're planning on joining tonight. So I know some are sick, but we'll have some others throughout the group. And just know, again, you can rewatch these recordings as you go back. So once Colleen pops on, I'll just have her go ahead and throw up that next slide, Colleen. I'll just show you this one. This one we'll keep putting up in the slides, especially because some people who will be in and out, we just want these to be just constant reminders. So just the do's, just give that support, encouragement when people are sharing. Sorry to hear that. Sounds really hard. That makes so much sense. So resonating with you. Thank you for sharing that. And you can put up the emojis like I just explained. So great. Well, Colleen, you can go ahead and take that down. And then we're going to practice. So part of this, the more that you drop into your experience and participate, the more that this stuff is going to sink in. So I want to make sure that everybody can use the chat. So if you go over to that box on the bottom right, I want you to just introduce yourself. And you are welcome as well to not even put your real name on there if you don't want to. Or you can change your name and your image. There's all sorts of ways, whatever helps you feel most comfortable. But would love to just have you each share something about yourself, maybe a favorite hobby, or something that you're hoping to learn in this group. So either one, I'd just love to have you share, and also just to get familiar with how to use that chat. So I'll just give you guys a second to do that. Yes, nice to see everyone. Yes. Looks like we've got a hand raised. Yeah, if you would like to interject something, feel free to, if you raise a hand, and then feel free to unmute yourself and you can ask your question. Or if you're just playing around with the buttons, that's okay too. Yes, yeah, Kelly, so glad to have you here. Yes, and your dog Benny is a cutie. I think he'll be therapeutic for us all to see. How many people here are pet people? All right. They are special. Yes, and more pets. We might just have a pet theme. I like that. And also feel free at any time in all of this, we'll do check-ins, but you can always feel free to either write or unmute yourself and say pass. So even with this, if you'd rather not, that's okay. There's going to be people on various levels of comfortability with these different things that we're going to do. Is anybody having trouble with the chat? How to pull it up? Okay, I see one head. Okay. If you go down on the bottom right of your screen, it looks like you're on a phone, so it might be a little bit different. If you go on the bottom right, there's it looks like one of those, like when you draw a box for like cartoon talking. So if you kind of go to that box and you look in there, well, we'll get it figured out at some point. Okay. Oh, love that. Watching movies, especially with your wife. Love that. Cool. Okay, great. Well, awesome. Well, so glad you guys can be here, and we'll jump into some information. So it's going to be kind of a mix of just different educational pieces. And again, I'm trying to condense as much as I can into what will be relatable to everybody and at various levels of kind of this journey. I know my tagline is doing the emotional, relational, mental healing journey together. So just everyone's in different places. So some of this might be review, it might be good review, and some it might just be all new information. So at any point, feel free to ask questions. All right, let's see, Colleen, could you pull up the first page of that worksheet packet? Okay, and I know when we do these, it's hard to be able to see all the faces, so just put in the chat if you can, or you can unmute yourself if you can't quite see the document. You will be getting these as well, but I know it's distracting if you can't fully see it. So if you can't, just let us know if we need to zoom it in more or something. So understanding a base level of trauma is really huge with the emotional relational healing journey. And I want to do right now to kind of transition us to the here and now. A lot of us, this would be a good example, a lot of trauma stuff you're living in the past or the future in different ways, but the goal is to get in the present. So I want you each to kind of start, we're going to do just like an emotion check really quick. And I want you to just kind of check, do you have any leftover emotions as you started today? Do you feel fully connected to yourself right now? Do you feel the anxiety or anger, frustration, or excitement? Do you feel just kind of checked out or tired just given the time of day? Why don't you just kind of see, how are you doing? Right? We ask people all the time, how are you? We don't ask, how am I? So why don't you just kind of do a check really quick. And then I'm going to just do a quick body release to just kind of help us get settled before we go into the information. So if anybody can sense that they're feeling something or they're realizing they're preoccupied with something, again, feel free to put it in the chat. That's a way you're checking in with yourself. And then I want you to just do a body release. So I want everybody, we're just going to go right into it. I want you to take your hands and I want you to just go like this quickly. Quick movements, not so you hurt yourself, but just shake your hands. Yep. And then you're going to slow the tempo to more of a medium. And then to do slow. And I mean really slow. And some of you have done this with me before. We're going to just do a little exercise. I want you to see what one felt good. We're going to do that sequence again. And then I want you to see what one felt better for you. And then you're going to do that one, whatever one you'd like to choose. So go ahead and do it again, just fast. Especially if you've had any fight, flight energy today. You just kind of got to get it out. If your breathing wants to do it, those exasperated breaths, again, I don't know what kind of day y'all had. Sometimes you just got to get it out. So this is just a really simple exercise to do that. And go ahead and go medium. And then really slow. You can just look at your hands too. Sometimes we're so disconnected with our heart and our body. So I want you to see what one feels good to you. And again, if this makes no sense to you right now, that's okay. We're going to keep doing, they're called somatic body releases. We're going to keep doing these throughout, and you're going to get more familiar with kind of what's going on inside of you. But go ahead and whatever one felt good for whatever reason, just do more of that. And if there's anything in your heart, you're like, yeah, this is still bothering you from earlier today, just notice it and kind of just give kind attention to kind of say, okay, we can work through that later. So just kind of notice. And then I want you to check in with yourself. And again, if this doesn't make sense, it's okay. And I want you to check in if you feel even a little bit more connected with yourself. And actually, Colleen, if you could go ahead and just take that down a second, I want to just be able to kind of see folks. I want you to just kind of see if you feel any more connected to yourself, because how many times we go throughout a day and we're like, no idea what's going on. We can have intense bodily tension all day and not really consciously realize it. You can be carrying a lot of emotions and never even pause to process it. So for anybody, you can just wave at the camera if you feel that at all. If you didn't, that's okay. If you're like, I have no idea what this is about, that's okay too. But I want you to just kind of see, and if you feel more present, to give it a number. And if you feel the same or that didn't do anything, that's okay. Why don't you just, again, if you can figure out the chat, go ahead and put a number in there from 1 through 10. How present do you feel in your body and in this moment? All right, so we got 7, 8, right? 8, 7. I'm trying to not say names in the chat too, just for the sake of the recording to make it easier on Colleen. 5. Oh, I bet that puppy's distracting. Sounds good. Way to listen to what your body and heart need. Okay. All right. Well, cool. If you can't figure out the chat, you can always hold up with your hands. If we're doing a like her, you can show us that way too. So, okay. Okay. Well, Colleen, go ahead and, all right. An 8. Okay. Then go ahead and bring that one up. So, so we do that too to create emotional space literally in your body. Because how many times have you been sitting all day and you're like, my brain can't focus on anything because you just need to move your body. So some of that stuff we'll do to kind of help you stay with us as we do the educational pieces. Okay, so everybody see the little picture of the cabin in the woods? Okay. Some of you have heard me probably share this story, but we're going to talk about this and how this impacts emotions. So if you were running from a physical threat in the woods, let's say there's a pack of wolves, don't emotionally take yourself there. But if you were, what would happen is it's an all body change. So your body would immediately go into a reaction. This is not, you're not thinking when you're in one of the 4 F states, which we'll talk more about. You're not thinking, you're just reacting in order to get to safety. So if you saw a cabin like up in the woods, what happens is your breathing changes, your eyes change, your whole body has adrenaline, cortisol pumping through, and probably a fight flight kind of energy. Once you get to the cabin in the woods and once your body is convinced that you're safe, you have breathing changes. So can somebody just put in the chat, how would your breathing change, your body change once you on a body-based level believed and felt that you were safe again? What would change physically about your body? And anybody, or if you want to practice unmuting, you can unmute and just kind of share as well.
I think
get faster or slower once you're convinced you're safe. Yeah. Okay. I see the chat too. Yeah. So breathing slows down and body releases tension. Yeah. So once you get there, it's like you're not consciously aware of what your body's carrying when you're there. You're only focused on safety. once you get there, just like, Cuff, you're saying, yeah, slower, longer breath. Good. So your body would naturally go from your rapid chest breathing to, and then you would do naturally what's called grounding, and especially visually with your eyes. So your eyes would probably be laser focused on the safety or looking around for threats. And once you get in there, though, your body naturally would expand and look around, checking for safety while you're breathing, while you're calming down. And you see the windows, the doors, they're all barred. Okay, I'm safe. Then what happens literally is your brain goes from back here to here and your thinker comes online. So that's when you'd be like, oh, okay, did I pass anybody? Do I have my cell phone? Do I have reception? You start actually be able to problem solve, or if you had to problem solve your way back to your vehicle out from the cabin, you'd actually have more of your brain online once you feel calmer and safer. But once you, let's say that you can't get a hold of anybody, so nobody's coming, you have to get out of the woods. If you were walking through the woods to get to your car, would you be more or less jumpy if you heard an acorn drop than you were before being chased by wolves? I want you to maybe put your thumbs up for more, thumbs down for less. I can't see a whole lot of you, but you can put it in the chat as well. Okay. Oh, now I can see people. Okay. Good. So all of this stuff, like with your body is naturally designed to be able to get into fight, flight, and then to calm down. The problem is when you get stuck in the fight, flight, and you can't get out of it for a lengthy period of time, that's when a lot of difficulty happens. So what does this have to do with relationships and emotions? So I'm going to do kind of our next bullet point here is a little micro exercise. I want you to go back to a place, some place that you think of fondly. So I'm not going to dip into hard emotions right now, but I want you to think of, where have you had happy memories, some sort of vacation growing up, some sort of family pet that you had, or it can be something present day too, just some place that you go, you just feel safe, you can just relax, you can unwind. And then I want you to put in the chat, or again, you can unmute yourself, What do you feel when you start to imagine and bring yourself back there? What changes happen in your body and how you describe it? And this is going to, with describing happy and sad emotions, there's a whole bunch to just being able to break down what you're feeling in your body. We're going to just start to practice that together. So I want you to see, like, when you feel that, do you feel a lightness? Your eyes, you might notice with different memories, go to a specific spot when you're thinking back on it. You might feel lightness in your chest, your shoulders might relax. You might have just taken a breath. So when you think about it, I want you to think and bring all your senses there. When you think the sights, the sounds, the smells, and then when you're aware of what you're feeling physically, describe it as best you can. Actually, I feel like I should just have you guys practice unmuting. Whoever's comfortable unmuting, I'm going to do that. I just want to make sure people know how to unmute so that when you do need it, you can get to it. So if you're comfortable, again, feel free to pass. Otherwise, yeah, what do you feel?
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah, great. Mm-hmm.
I would say
the key part is, where do you feel? So it's a good descriptor word, emotion word. Where do you feel the peacefulness in your body? Like, what in your body tells you I'm feeling peaceful?
I guess
And it's wild, right? Because for 2 seconds thinking about something, your body has a reaction. Good. Anybody else? And if you don't want to go, just write pass in the chat. I don't want to miss someone if you're trying to figure out the mute button. So if you don't want to share, that's totally fine. I'll just put it in the chat just so I know. I feel like torso, shoulders, head, and yeah, I love the temperature changes are actually huge with different emotional experiences too. So great. Yeah. Okay. Having them do to kind of understand more of what your body does when you're having emotions. I was having them think back to like a positive memory or place and see what your body does.
Nice. Okay. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. I'll give you 30 more seconds. Anybody else would like to share? Okay. Okay. Well, good. Well, all those were great examples, and I'm intentionally doing a positive memory, not a negative one, although we'll do a bit more of a negative memory too, because there's something about your body really does hold stuff. So we'll do another one in a little bit. But so the 4 F's, so on this worksheet, what are the 4 F's? So I'll just see people name. And again, I'm going to make this as interactive as we can to help keep you with me too, but you can type it in the chat or come on mute and just each should just kind of name one. What are, when I say the 4 F's, what are those? So reactions that you have to get to safety. Yes, fawn, good. And that's the one people are less familiar with. So fawning is something that humans in particular do in order to get to safety, as you fawn, so you people please. And it's not out of a giving heart, it's out of anxiety. So fawning is always anxiety driven. Good. Freeze, yes. And fight, yes.
flight.
Good. So fight, flight, fawn, or freeze. And we are so much more aware of these when we're in physical threat than when we're in emotional or relational threat. Okay, so I'm going to do a little more explanation about the teleportation thing below, and then I'm going to have you drop into a different kind of experience to kind of get to know your nervous system. So with triggers, and again, I don't know what everybody's heard, so different types of trauma. There's acute, so think like really big one-time event, so major car accident, right? You're going to have lasting fight, flight stuff stuck in your body after something like that, but it's easier to work through something like that. Chronic is like an ongoing, so like a domestic abuse kind of situation, whatever scale that looks like, it can greatly vary. Complex is where you've got a big mix from a lot of different angles, past and present. So it's really hard for your body to find safety and to find a sense of calm. So big T or little t. This is one of the things I like to focus on a lot with people, is that the little t traumas I think are far more impactful than the big T, because the little t is how your emotions were or were not tended. And it has a major impact on emotions and relationships and your attachment. So also sensory, so visual, auditory, smell, taste, somatic. So one example I shared, I had a pretty bad car accident several years ago that it was interesting. Thankfully, everyone was okay. But because of that, when I was driving again, I didn't consciously, keyword, I didn't consciously recall the last sign that I saw before the accident happened, but my body did. Because the first time I had to drive through that scene again, I wasn't consciously thinking about it. But as soon as my eyes saw this sign, my entire body went into a major reaction as if the accident was about to happen again. It wasn't, but that is what my body associated with that. So my whole body felt it. So that happens again with emotions and relationship stuff. So one relational example, how many of you, who all has had, okay, has anybody had negative experience with bosses, or just, or some sort of other authority figure? So outside of a parent, have you ever had authority figures where like, oh man, I just feel anxious around them, or I just feel like an angry edge? Okay. Yeah, a lot of us have. And bosses, this is where sometimes bosses truly are, they're giving an appropriate present day reason for a trigger to happen. Like that they're doing something in the present moment that warrants you having stuff. So if they're in bodily tension, it's natural for you to feel some. It's just natural. But also there's an extra bit when especially bosses can really mirror parent figures that we grew up with. So you wouldn't have usually a reactivity inside of you if you didn't have stuff. I like to say it's like a landing pad or like a Velcro, if you didn't have prior experiences with stuff. So bosses can be a huge one. That's a really a big trigger. So then emotional. So this is learned sequencing. So this is what we're going to do in a little bit. But whenever you're sad starts to come up, remember there's physical feelings and effects to that. When your sad comes up, and when it's met consistently with something or met without something consistently, then it creates learned patterns literally in your nervous system that we just don't consciously realize. One of my hopes for each of you is that by the end of kind of what we're doing together, just in these sessions, is that you'll have more conscious awareness of different things going on inside of you. And I'm saying this, I was a counselor for years before I knew any of this stuff. So I'm just saying it's wild to me, and the stuff that I'm still learning, right? I'm still on a journey, and it's just wild and a beautiful journey to start to get more and more aware of what's going on inside of you and how to help you and what's being triggered. We are the most complex set of memories, and bodily and emotionally. It's just kind of a wild experience. So just know, I just hope that a lot of this, you'll just grow in conscious awareness and through each other, and just the different stories and stuff that they'll resonate with each of you too. So explicit and implicit. So implicit, it's easier to work through, like sometimes I work with somebody and all of a sudden they realize, oh, that boss triggered, because I never felt like I could sit still, because whenever I sat still, my dad was mad that I wasn't being productive. Okay, well, that makes extra sense why you're feeling extra anxious when this boss is harping on you and you can't find settling inside of you because that's what you were used to. It's easier when you can okay, this makes sense because I know it's being triggered. A lot of other triggers are a lot harder to identify. You can actually walk into a room with a similar wallpaper color of how you grew up and have immediate weird feelings flood your body, and you won't even consciously somebody's realized my mood just shifted, let alone why. So there are a ton of different things that can trigger anything. So pretty much anything can be a trigger. And it's just really empowering once you get more aware of what's going on inside of you and how to help you. Okay, so some other examples, another one that's easier, like a war vet. Like if I have a war vet in my office and somebody's shooting fireworks outside and they dive under the table, it's pretty easy to recognize why, right? It's an auditory cue that a bomb is coming and they need to get to safety. So you react. So when I do that, kind of like that cabin thing, your body, you ground, I would help somebody ground. Hey, do you hear my voice? Can you feel the carpet underneath your fingers? Feel the table up above you. Is it hard or is it soft? And actually get them back in the present moment with me. So that's a more dramatic example. It's just a lot harder to recognize when we're in emotional relational ones, which is going to be a big focus in what we do. And we talked the classroom freeze effect, like we feel here. And again, I want you to get permission, even if you feel like you got to like look sideways and not look at the camera. I want you to just kind of get into what we're doing, because as you know, hopefully as we go along, different people will feel more comfortable to share different stories. And as they do, you're going to have reactions inside of you that we're going to work on you being aware of as you hear different things. It's going to cause activation. So in seeing what you need. I know in my own journey, I actually had to turn the camera off a lot, depending on what was being shared, because it was way too much for my nervous system to be able to be seen in those moments. So I just want you to just keep being aware of what you need, because this can actually mirror the freeze response. So if somebody on the screen is sharing a story and it's resonating with you and you're feeling the impulse to fight, flight, it's actually important you be able to stay with that impulse and go do that. Go pace, but do it slowly. Because by sitting, you're actually reinforcing staying in a freeze response, which means this is too big for my nervous system. So also, another side, I didn't quite say this, with the cabin in the woods, with the fight flight, that's what your body does first, is fight flight with anything. When you cannot successfully fight flight, then it goes into freeze. So again, don't emotionally go there. But with the cabin in the woods, if you could not get away or fight off the wolves, your body would naturally go into freeze at some point to protect you literally from pain. It's the same thing with emotions. And for a lot of people, when you're a kid, it's oftentimes not safe to fight, flight, and so you stay frozen. So for example, if you have a parent that's mad at you, you understandably would feel a fight mode back or want to run. But depending on the parent, you might have already learned, oh, it's not safe because they're going to get more mad if I do what my body appropriately wants to do because they're not being a safe person right now. So then we learn to freeze. So, and that's why a lot of classrooms and why fidget toys, I think, are so popular right now, because we've learned we got to just not do what our body wants. So all that to say, I want you to keep just reading what's going on inside of you. Kind of as we go along. And I'm going to do more on window tolerance later, but especially if it gets really, really big, then work on kind of grounding you back in the moment, because sometimes these groups can be tricky when somebody feels a lot of activation. If you want to turn off your camera, that's totally fine. I want to be able to help coach you through if you get overwhelmed. So again, don't know what's going to happen like with this group, depending on what people share, but there's all sorts of things that do. Okay. So, okay. How many of you have a pet? We kind of chatted about pets a little bit earlier. Okay, so a lot of people have pets. Okay, so if, just to give another analogy for trauma stuff, if you rescued a puppy from the pound and you go to pet it and it nosedives on the ground, I have a friend whose dog does this, literally nosedives and freezes. Would you feel that to be a normal behavior, or would you assume there's probably a story here? Yeah, probably story, right? And same thing, if a dog is like abnormally aggressive towards you, there's a reactivity in a fight mode, would you assume there's a story there as well? Yeah. So this, I remember when this kind of hit me, kind of doing my own work, was how it's amazing whenever we have an animal with a response that there's something in us that's like, that's not normal behavior. We immediately go into endless compassionate narratives. You know, I've noticed that dog always does that around dudes with hats. So I think it was beat by a dude with a hat. Or whenever I pick up this book, I just think somebody must have beat this dog with a book. We just have all these explanations for behaviors. But how many, when you can think back, whether you said it or heard from other people, you see someone who's actually in a fight, flight, real big reactivity, especially that one. And our usual immediate response to people is shame. Ooh, what's wrong with them? Right? So again, to just kind of realize we got to have the same compassion that we have for rescue animals that we have like for people, who we oftentimes just don't. And I know I was a counselor for several years before I recognized in myself or in other people, oh, this is trauma actually showing up. And once you start to really look for it, you see it everywhere. And it actually enables you to have more patience with somebody, for you to not get triggered when you recognize, oh, there's a story that's going on there. Is this making sense? Okay, I want to check in on, is there any comments or questions on any of that, kind of from what I've shared so far? No. Okay, cool. Well, with that said, we're going to do just a small exercise. And again, this is one in groups. We just got to be really careful, because some things are going to be far more activating for people than for others. So I want you to give permission. If at any point you start to feel, you're going to learn your own nervous system, but if you start to feel like a 6 to 10 activation, you start to feel big fight, flight, fawn, freeze, needing to move, or just shut down, I want you to orient with your eyes. So I want you to pick 3 colors in your room or your space and just look around until you see your body take a breath. You start to relax more. You find one color and then find another color. All right, find everything that's white. Okay, so if you start to feel, again, I don't know everybody's backing, but there's different things that you do to kind of resource yourself to get yourself back in the present moment. Okay, so the topic we're going to do, that's why it just is usually a more triggering one for people. So we're not going to do a huge deep dive, because this is our first session. But I want you guys to each go ahead and close your eyes. And again, just know that that's your tool. At any point, feel free to pop out and just ground yourself by finding 3 colors around you and just kind of tuning out what we're doing. Okay. So I'll go ahead and close your eyes if you feel comfortable, or do like just a soft gaze down, something to just minimize distractions. You can also feel free to turn away from the camera if you want, but just take a second to read yourself. Or if you're uncomfortable at all, do you need to change position? We want your body to be in as relaxed of a state as possible when we do these. And then I want you to just imagine being in a room that you grew up in. If you had several homes growing up, just to pick one. What do the flooring look like? The walls look like? And if you can imagine, I want you to imagine that you had just broken a dish in the kitchen, and that you had a parent coming and knocking on your door. So when you hear the knock, I want you to just see, what does your body do? Even now, your body's going to do the same thing that it probably did back then. And you can try on different people, your mom, your dad, parent, guardian. How would your body react if you heard their voice on the other side of the door, knowing that you had just broken a dish? And I want you to practice noticing what goes on physically in your body, and try to describe the sensations. Were you calm and light, or tense, distracted, rapid thinking, impulse to pace or to hide? And then, is there any 4F? Would you feel more of a fight mode, more of tension in your fists, more of the flight, wanting to run, more the freeze, where you're just stuck, or more of the fawn, you want to open the door with a smile and distract, or do something to get their mind in a happy place? Okay, and then we're going to all just practice together. If you want to stay there for a second, you can, but I want to practice the orienting. We're just going to pause it even right there. So almost like we're watching a video, and just hit pause. And then I want you to go ahead and do what I just mentioned, to look around. And we're just going to practice this again together. I know oftentimes I didn't even know how dysregulated I was until I start orienting. So you just find a color in your space and just look around. And find everything that is that color in your space. And again, notice as you do that, if there's a sense of, I almost feel a little bit more present here. Or if you did have any threat mode from that, again, I don't know everybody's stories here. You might not have felt anything, or you might have felt a lot of things. But as you were to, as you're looking around, does your body show you signs that you're a little more calm again? Okay. So I want to just have you guys share, because again, part of the beauty of this group is it is wild how differently different people are going to experience even just that. Or if you've never done something like that, or I know I was incredibly numb from here down to have any awareness of what my body was doing for years, but I didn't even realize it. So I'd love to just have you guys share. If you're comfortable, unmute yourself, or you can throw it in the chat. Or just throw it in a pass or something, or say pass. I don't want to miss you if you're, because sometimes you'll need longer time to process before you say something. But would love to just kind of hear what things did you notice about your body, emotions, or a 4F state when you were just imagining that just little scenario. Well, when you think of it, did you feel any sort of kind of buzzy bee kind of energy? Because sometimes, yeah, and that's why sometimes the orienting, and I just did the eyes, but usually when you go through all your senses, and if you still feel a little bit of this, I would encourage you to actually go through that, but to try to go slowly to find the color. If that's too much, go to touch. And like feel for temperature, for texture, doing different things like that, or just kind of like on your body, what feels loose, what feels tight, the hair on your face, or, just get familiar. So all your different, senses to do that. So, because if you feel that, sometimes it takes a while for your body to come out of it. So again, I'm just wondering, so you can just kind of explore for you, did I feel fight, flight? Like, were you able to sink into the exercise, even to like, imagine that happening with the parent at all? Yeah, that's okay. So one of the things when it's hard to focus, sometimes people just have so much from the day and you haven't decompressed, so your mind is already all over the place. But also when we do stuff like this, I always like to get curious, because if you sense stuff like that, the high distractibility is oftentimes like a flight kind of thing, where it's like, and this is a lot of stuff happens where you're not consciously aware of it. Or sometimes I'll see, one of my favorites to look for is yawns. Sometimes when people yawn, it's just because you're tired. Other times it's actually a dissociative response that your body just, boom, hit a freeze because you hit an overwhelm. Now that wasn't, particularly very deep exercise, but sometimes that happens when we do things like that on different levels. Is all of a sudden I'll see somebody yawn. I always like to check in, because sometimes they have to come back to themselves because that's their body just trying to slip into sleeping, or just because it felt like too much. Other times it's a sign that you are decompressing. So you were just stressed, and after going through these exercises, sometimes your body will just yawn as oh, okay, you're actually in your relaxed system now. So yawns are another good one to get curious about. So yeah, I would just encourage you to think through, okay, was there a reason for me to be in maybe a flight distractibility? To just get curious about it. So compassionate curiosity is huge with this stuff. Does that make sense or resonate with you at all? Well, thanks for sharing. Who else? I think we had somebody else that was unmuting at the same time, I think. Yeah, good. Yeah. And those tools, so we'll talk about different things, like, because coping skills like grounding techniques are huge, but sometimes people actually use them as another pain avoidance. So so that's a really good example of it's helping you get present now. And we also need to do that so that emotions can be come manageable enough that we can sit with them sometimes. So it is really, yeah, I'm glad you felt like it was good to get back to the present moment and realize, okay, this isn't happening now, but also to recognize, yeah, fight mode is huge. And what are, and some of you may have heard this, but what are the two biggest times that you need to feel an experiential measure of safety with your parents? The two most important times. It's when you have big emotions, when you make a mistake. So that's a really good example. I love you thought the fight mode, because if you were to think about it, were you anticipating parents coming in with fight mode, bodily tension, anger, right? And this is so common, instead of for a parent to be able to be in a calm place, because as soon as a parent comes in dysregulated like that, they immediately impact you that way. So some of you know I do equine therapy too. It's the same thing with horses. If one of them senses a threat in the woods, they will, and it like its whole body tenses and it looks towards the threat. Then the rest of the herd regulates to that. And then once that one is convinced of safety, its body relaxes. It goes back to a safe and social state, just munching. And then the rest slowly follow. So it's the same thing with people. So whenever a parent is in, whether it's low or high grade threat mode, it's going to impact kind of what 4F state that you get into. And when when a parent notices that, they can realize that's like the check engine light. Ooh, my kid just tensed. Ooh, I'm tense. Okay, my kid is more important than that dish. Okay, hang on, buddy. I gotta go take a couple breaths a minute. I can tell I made you nervous, huh? And then they can come back and talk about it. And then sure, there's repair what you can, and do things like that. But when it caused the relational rupture is when a lot of that fight, flight, fun, and free stuff happens. So that's a really good example. Okay, who else has got an example that they noticed? Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I can see it looks like some sadness is coming up too. Yeah. Let's go ahead. I'd love to have you just kind of put your hand on your heart if you can. And I want to just practice just seeing that and giving you some compassion. Just say like, yeah, your body reacted that way. Just say that makes sense. Because that didn't feel good. The neglect, to not care about me, and then all of a sudden she cares about a dish. Yeah. And then you just notice kind of where in your body you feel the sadness and feel the fight mode.
Chest.
And all this is old stuff. So just to know that is everything that you felt when you were little too, but it's so hard when you don't have the words. You don't have the wise adult who's naming, recognizing, oh, my kid's having a reaction. Oh, I wonder why. And for you to be able to explain, why do you care about this? You're never here. And if a safe enough parent could validate it, say, you know what, you're right. I am caring more about a dish than I have you. I'm so sorry. That repair is really, really critical for stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah. So thanks for sharing. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I got another thanks for sharing, Amber. Yeah. How many others does that resonate where there's like complex emotions? There's a fight, and fight always is covering up tender emotions. How do you ever recall, again, in your conscious memory, because your unconscious one's going to recall stuff like this maybe as we go along too, but can any of you others remember having a fight mode with parents, or also like a fear or hurt that was underneath it? You can wave at the camera or just send, yeah. Yeah, I think it's pretty common. And it's so hard with that kind of power play for you to even safely get into your conscious awareness of what's going on and validate your own experience. You kind of have to divorce yourself out of safety to be able to feel okay again with your parent. It's almost like you have to agree with their assumptions about different things. Yeah. Well, cool. Well, who else has got an example? Awareness. Yeah. Yeah, this is where your body made such a smart choice for you, because it's not like you're consciously making a choice like that as a kid. It's your unconsciously, your body is doing what's going to keep you the safest. So yeah, absolutely. And then the trick is, again, just going towards the triggers then in adulthood, is sometimes when you have an appropriate fight mode, an appropriate anger for somebody mistreating you or something like that, a lot of times what happens is that same muscle memory I feel come up in my body, but I have to freeze because it's not safe to actually set a boundary, to actually say no. Yeah, does that make sense? Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a good example. There's so many complex things as a kid. You don't have all the words for it to be able to identify what's going on. Yeah. Okay. Well, who else? Anybody else got something like to share? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And as a kid, you do need connection like you need food and water. So that's where you will innately, it's the same thing as if you were starving, you would steal the granola bar from a store if you're starving. But emotionally, if you're starving or connection wise, you're starving, you're going to do whatever it takes to try to get back in line with connection. So yeah, it's kind of like there's you in your heart and then a parent. And what happens is you're like, instead of, oh, my heart's hurting right now, that didn't feel good to have them unleash their anger on me. Instead of staying with you, you kind of naturally split. And a part of you goes and sides with the parent. And that's when the kids are, I'm so stupid. Why did I do that? What's wrong with me? I can never make them happy. All those sorts of stuff. So that's where as a kid, just developmentally, you can't externalize blame. Everything's all about you. Like you see a kid walk into the room, it's all about them. Everybody's like, oh, yay, in a good way. But they also take on all the blame. It's always my fault. If my mom or dad's in a bad mood, it's always my fault. So it's always kind of about you. So that's the thing. Part of this process is being able to untie these ties and say, no, actually, I don't care if I launched a chair through that window. It shouldn't cause relational break. I'm using more of an extreme example for a reason. But for your parent, it's more important, instead to focus on the behavior, it's more important, whoa, I care about you, because that clearly means you're really upset right now. And why you're upset? Oh, because I just lectured and ran my mouth and got angry at you and then expected you to just stand there and take it. You know what? I need to check myself first. Okay. And sure, let's address how you can handle anger besides launching a chair through the window. But usually a parent's got to check them first, and to not just focus on the behavior, right? Because people are, and that's why I like working with horses, they're nonverbal. And kids are. I think a lot of times we think they come out the womb fully trained, or it's like you want that to be the case, and parents often do. We don't realize like how much training that they actually need, and to think of them as like they're like a animal in a way that's just nonverbal. They don't have the words to communicate. They can only show you behaviorally. So what oftentimes happens, and maybe you guys there's a punishment-based mindset to stop an unpleasant behavior because they're triggered because of their stuff, and that's how you're treated, instead of exploring why is the behavior showing up. This is making sense? Okay, cool. Okay, well, I'd like to do another just kind of simple body movement thing before we go on to like our next page of kind of content stuff. So if everybody could, I'd like you to practice, especially since I heard a lot of just the fight mode ones in there from like a few of you. I want you to practice tensing your body and releasing. So these are little exercises that you can do today. If you feel a fight mode, come on, to actually do this, because your body needs to be listened to and release in a safe way emotion that's coming up for you. So I want you to just practice, and whatever it looks like, you can bring your legs up to you, and I want you to just tense like your face, all your muscles, just tense everything. And then release it. And then just kind of see, how does that feel in your body? What sensations go through you when you do that? So go ahead and everybody go ahead and just do that. Tense. And release it. And then I want you to just kind of scan and just notice, how does that feel in my body? Any sort of lightness. Then go ahead and do it again. And just noticing all your muscles, your legs, your back, your arms, your face, your shoulders. And just notice how that feels. And then I want you to do another one, and you can either do this in your mind's eye, so just kind of imagine it, or to enact it, or another one for fight. I want you to imagine that there's like some sort of threat. It can be, going back to those stories if you want to return to that one, and to feel like you are pushing away the threat. So kind of imagine somebody, whether it's a parent or somebody else, that your body went into a threat mode reaction in a bubble. So they can't see, they don't know what you're doing, they're unaware. But I want you to just imagine that you have the power to push them away from you, and just feel all the tension in your arms, and to go slowly. And then imagine the place you're pushing them. It can be out of the house, out of the neighborhood. To go slow. Sometimes people impulse want to go, well, they're in China. Okay, great. Well, we might push them there, but let's do it slowly. So you stay with your nervous system instead of reinforce a flight response. So you just kind of imagine that. Again, either imagine or do it with your hands, and just do it with me now, and just picture that person and slowly push them away from you until your body feels like it can relax a little bit. And just notice, from whatever distance it feels safe to observe that person, notice how far away they have to be from you. And then I want you to notice, because as you're doing this, sometimes there's conflicting emotions or physical sensations. Sometimes as you're doing this, there might still be a mixture of relief and fear, or relief and guilt. There can be different things that you feel when you're imagining doing something like that. And those are the same things that you would have felt when you were a kid. So you just kind of notice if there's conflicting things inside of you, notice each one and give it a voice. Kind of see, hey, what you trying to tell me? Okay, you feel relieved? Yeah, that makes sense, because they weren't being a safe person. Or you feel guilt. Okay, tell me about that. Did they guilt trip you? If you wanted to be away from them, or didn't want to give them a hug, and they wanted to force that when you didn't, or you weren't congruent on the inside, you weren't wanting that, then your heart wasn't lying. You didn't want that for a reason. Or if you felt fear of retribution. Okay, I want to set the boundary, but I know punishment's coming. All these things, if you have anything like that coming up for you, is also what you experienced back then. And I want you to see if you've got any activation. So from doing, again, if you couldn't sink into that at all, again, that's okay. Sometimes it takes a while to be able to actually get into your body and into these experiences. I just want to give you little bits, even in our first session. But if you feel any activation, even from doing that, again, I want you to just practice orienting with your eyes, or using touch, your sense of touch, to touch things around you. And just to kind of get you back here until you maybe take a breath. You just feel a little bit more in your body again. And then again, would love to open it up to just kind of have people share. And then again, check in with you. None of this do you ever have to share anything. And I want you to check in with you. What do you feel safe with? What do you feel uncomfortable with? Because so many times, sometimes we can overshare when our heart's actually like, no, wait, but if people don't treat that well, I don't feel safe enough with you yet that you're going to protect me or not shame me for sharing something. So that's when you want to hold it until you feel comfortable enough inside of you that you're not going to agree, kind of this finger thing here. You're not going to side with somebody who shames or mocks or judges or something like that. So again, read, what are you comfortable with? You do not have to share if you don't want to. But whoever's comfortable would love to kind of, hear what you noticed. Yeah.
It's like a circle.
Yeah, good. And all of that, you had appropriate fight mode surfacing. That was your body telling you this guilt trip isn't okay. have that coming, but then you're in conflict then with yourself because your boundary that's coming up is not safe with the parent. So yeah, so if you feel more anger coming, yeah, I'd like to have you just practice validation. So we'll get to more of, there's a comfort pathway that I like to call it that, where you actually practice the attunement like you just did. I'm having more fight. Then you give yourself the validation, the compassion that you never got. Say, that makes sense. And even, sometimes even still, like I got to shake it out or literally punch something. Again, it's helpful for your nervous system if you go slow, like if you feel the need to do that or to shove, to go slow, because it helps you get out of reactivity and just with that intention. But to just practice then still just the verbal validation, that makes so much sense. And I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that happened, because that was actually a parent doing a bad thing to you. You were right, but I couldn't side with you because it wasn't safe. So some sort of just kind of explore, like, what does your heart need in that? Because that's great that you're noticing and your body's feeling safe enough with you to even feel that more present now. Yeah. And then to notice. So once you kind of give that to your heart, whatever, and if you feel, again, more body stuff can help you release that, or the emotion stuff, just by acknowledging and validating, just saying, I was right. I was right. That wasn't okay. That wasn't okay. And notice, does your heart have any sort of thank you response? How so, like take that as far as like how you treat yourself, or how, yeah, that's great. Yeah. And people are, whenever it does come out, if your present day self ever reacts that way towards other people, that's the beauty of this work too, is you can, instead of shaming yourself, is immediately have compassion. Oh, I'm just doing what I was taught. So then you can first say, okay, hold the phone. I got to get compassion in for me first, because where did I do that? And we'll talk more about triggered self versus true self. We'll say that's not who I am. That's triggered self stuff coming out. And I wouldn't act like a rescue puppy if I didn't have a reason to. And once you get compassion, then there is just a ripple effect then with other people. And you can actually hold space for empathy then when you see the effect of you on somebody else too, because your heart's gotten what it needs. So then you can hold space for them too. So that's great. And that's the hardest part. I think the most challenging, like marriage, parenting are two things that are going to treat you the most with just life and just different job stuff. But people, it's always just showing how you were raised. And you can't do something different either if you didn't learn it. So yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing. That's great. Fight mode, I think, especially gets probably treated the worst by parents. I love, like, that is such a good example of you sharing, like, feeling flooded with fight and then more fight because, guilt is coming in so much. Like, if you had a parent pause and notice your body, my kid's tense right now. What am I doing to cause that? And they got low, almost like a rescue puppy. You just kind of innately know to get low, get slow. Explore what your body's sending. How do you just kind of help create a sense of calm? And then you can explore. And how rare, for oftentimes, I don't know if many of you guys experience this at all, but I think it's pretty rare for a lot of people to have experienced an I'm sorry from their parent. And not an exasperated, well, I'm sorry, not something like that, or an anxious, oh, I'm sorry, right? No, like a regulated, hey, I'm really sorry. I just lost my temper on you, didn't I? I can tell that didn't feel good. It's so rare, but rupture is one thing, but rupture and healing is a totally different ballgame when you get that with the parent. So yeah, thanks for sharing. That's a really good example. There's always so many complex things going on. And when you don't have the words as a kid, it's hard to, you need a parent to help you process. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you both for sharing. And that, I think, is the beautiful piece about, there's something in your heart that's like, I won't let it go, because somewhere that you need that I'm sorry. And it's so hard. We'll talk more too. How do you keep resolving stuff like that within yourself? But it has to be voiced and worked through. And that sort of things do come out like later in adulthood too, or where, especially with conflict, is one of the most triggering things out there for everyone in different ways. But especially if you just never had appropriate I'm sorries, and that's all you're met with is that confusion, or for both of you, sharing that guilt is a major major one, that not only are you feeling appropriate fight, but now you're feeling the weight of this adult's emotions because they don't know how to work through their own and are unconsciously, albeit mostly, I think, but putting it on you, and you're not supposed to carry that as a kid. And just the nature of that then too, you cannot feel safe when you feel you have a fragile parent. You just can't. They don't have strong enough shoulders for you to be able to go to with anything, have any reaction. They're supposed to be the steady in your storm, not the other way around. But yeah, it makes it a lot. So you're carrying so many weights unnecessarily, and then don't even have the words to put to it. So yeah, that's a huge one. So thank you both for sharing. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, cool. Anything else? Anybody notice, or anything else from that that anybody's noticing? Great. Yeah, thanks for sharing. When you realize like, oh, I just probably shoved, or I wasn't safe enough to feel appropriate fight mode. Yeah. So much gets stuck. So much gets stuck that way. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for sharing. Cool. Well, anybody else? Yeah, good. Yeah, thanks for sharing. And again, I think theme of today, I think lots of fight, lots of guilt. That's such a major one, and it's really a hard one to name, especially when you're feeling that guilt or feeling bad for a parent. And I like that you were able, because there's conflicting parts inside of you. So we'll talk more about this too, but we all got different parts. But the part of you that always felt like you had to like take it and freeze or shut down your own stuff, it sounds like you're able to set it aside for a little bit to say like, no, actually, I want to feel the relief, and it's time that I be able to get that. So that part of you to be able to do that is really huge to experience that. So that's great. That's really great. And it's so hard. Like who else familiar with Pavlov's dogs experiment from years ago? Okay, so they rang a bell and gave dogs meat, and then eventually the dogs started salivating, not just when they got the meat, but when they heard the bell. So there's a learned sequencing, and the same with our body. So kind of like what you're saying, and this is where the relational triggers that happen a lot of times is when you're feeling some sort of anger, and then you're feeling guilt and go into freeze. It's the same learned pattern of how to relate. And part of the power of breaking emotional relational triggers is interrupting the pattern. So it's in slowing it down enough that then you can interrupt it and actually feel, or, like Kelly, you're saying, get in touch with that anger. Because there might be a small part of you somewhere that feels an anger, but it's never felt safe enough to grow and come out. And to actually create space for those different things that interrupt those patterns, that's when we start to see kind of like that breakthrough that can be really helpful. But it's just hard. And also I'll say, some people I've seen, again, there's varying levels of felt safety in adulthood. So if you have very low support, a lack of safety, like at home or with friends, or really isolated or different things going on, then it's harder to do this work because your threat mode is overall going to be higher. So just to kind of throw that out there too. So sometimes I'm doing this, if breakthrough is a struggle, sometimes it's just increasing safe supports, which I know is easier said than done too. So yeah. Well, anybody else like to share on that one? See, I just kept seeing lots of heads nodding while each of you are sharing and different comments and things. So yeah, anybody else that would like to share anything on that? To sharing, and two, I'll point out, it creates there's a measure of safety you actually, it sounds like, have inside of you to be able to recognize that. And there is no such thing as a perfect parent, but especially depending on the scenarios, it's easier to acknowledge like where one really blew it and to feel the present anger. It's harder with the other ones sometimes to go there when they were the more functional one, especially depending on the severity of the stuff. It's really hard to see, oh, this parent was really lacking in some stuff too. So that's really great for your heart. I'm glad that you've been able to validate kind of on both ends that you need something different. It's huge. Cool. Anybody else? Right. Yeah. It's that, and that is, powerlessness is a huge trigger in itself, because when you feel any situation too, like as an adult, if you ever feel a sense of powerlessness, there's something that so mirrors that you can't, anywhere you go for safety, it always makes it worse. And even I love how you said go to the woods. There are so many things. Actually, one assignment I'll probably have you guys do at least at some point is to actually think of where did you feel safe? There's different things when, in my own journey, I started to realize, oh, pets are big for me as an adult because that was the one place that I felt safe as a kid. My most intact memories as a kid, I was like, oh, they were all with pets or neighborhood friends, not at home. So yeah, when you start to realize like, oh, there's a reason. So I love that. Just like, yep, your body, your nervous system is like, I got to get safety somewhere. And the hard part is it wasn't with people where you're supposed to have the felt sense of safety. And that is really hard, especially you don't even have the words for it. And yeah, that journey of like both of them, and it really does force you to do the internal work of, okay, heart, I got you. What do you need now? Because they're empty wells with this stuff. And there's something about this process too. It's beautiful. Once you work through the grief of stuff you were never safely able to, it is beautiful because you're able to then free up, receive whatever love they have to give you, but to be okay when they don't have it to do certain things, and to know, okay, I might not ever get the I'm sorry's, but I know that wasn't okay. So I don't need it from them to validate it now or things like that. But it's such an internal labor and it's not ideal. It's never as good as when you can get it appropriately with the parent figures. So yeah. Thanks for sharing. Well, anybody else have anything on that to share? Well, I'd like you to just kind of do a check-in because, again, I'm seeing lots of heads nodding. And I want you to just kind of see, how does it feel as you connect with you to feel lots of people feeling like just different similar things or validation from the other people is what does that do inside of you? And how does that feel? And just to kind of do like a check-in with that. There's something powerful to be seen. Or you might recognize, oh, I feel like I need a little more validation with this. Or, there's can be different things too. So leave space for that. But also if you feel kind of heard, there's something so powerful about that. I tell clients a lot, I don't want to tell you you're not alone. I want you to see that you're not alone. It's really powerful. Even though you all have unique experiences, but there's so many similarities even to share today. It's beautiful. Does anybody feel a little bit more like after sharing or hearing other people share? Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, if there's not any last comments on that, I'm going to go on to like our next worksheet, unless there's anything else from the stuff that we've just done. No? Okay. Cool. Well, Colleen, if you want to scroll down to the next page, we're going to talk a little bit more about kind of emotional patterns. So I know I've said sometimes it's hard because you feel so powerless, especially when you don't know your patterns. So we're going to talk more about those so you can get more aware of what are the patterns inside of you. Okay, so under identifying your training, so I'm just going to read that paragraph. When emotional safety has not been ingrained in childhood so that a person is able to safely move through emotions, your unconscious protectors will make unconscious decisions for your safety without your conscious consent. Learning to identify and make what's unconscious conscious is part of the healing journey. You've been trained your entire life with how to handle emotions, and those patterns are then applied in adulthood to bigger pain. So we're just going to give you different frameworks from different people to help you get more consciously aware of when you have an emotion come up inside of you, what happens? What's your training? What's the sequence that happens? So the first one, Alex Howard, he's got a great accent. If you like listening to like British people, it's really fun. So I love his stuff partially for that reason. But it's also just good content. He's got some really helpful framework. So one of them is just avoidance and distraction. So I think we all can be guilty of this one, but you feel an emotion, scroll. Okay, especially now, that's one of the easiest pain. Yeah, see some hands. Yeah. So that is a huge one, or just distraction. Different kinds, right? It can be stress cleaning. Again, sometimes by all means, you need to do something to help it come a little bit lower so that you can be with it. So again, there's nuance there, but when you're constantly scroll and never return to, wait, why am I avoiding? What am I avoiding? that's when there's just, it's now a pattern. Another one is state changing. So sometimes, again, this can look deceptive because sometimes you're like, I'm angry, I'm going to go run. By all means, go on the run, instead of punching somebody in the face, go for a run, but return to the emotion and what does your heart need in it? Then empath, this one's so sneaky, but whenever you see somebody who's constantly serving, constantly empathy for everybody, everything, every animal, rescuing everything, oftentimes that is a person who's giving out what their heart needs. So they're in desperate need of empathy, but no awareness of the internal world. So this is a lot of times you grow up like a big fawner as a kid, like always monitoring your parents' moods and making them happy and doing things and no awareness of you. Another one is blame. So this is a tricky one because part of this process is appropriate blame because you always blame yourself as a kid. It's my fault that they got mad at me and hit me or berated me because of this and that. No, it's actually their fault because they couldn't manage emotions. So there's appropriate blame to slide on them. But sometimes what's easy in pain avoidance is you want to stay in blame while you're bleeding out. You got to tend your own wounds, acknowledge that that's what they did. But then, I always use this example and it cracks me up because I need to make a new one. But there's a big tree outside my office that I like to point to and to say, if someone's up there cutting off limbs with a chainsaw, they dropped the chainsaw and they cut off my arm. Okay, terrible, right? It's dramatic, maybe on purpose. But if I just lay there being like, you did this, I can't believe you. What? Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I can't believe what? If I stay there, the longer that I do that, the longer I'm literally bleeding out. I have to tend the wounds. Yes, they did just cut off my arm, right? It's a very big thing that I now have to figure out how to live with, but I got to tend to it, right? So same thing with like emotions, like, oh my gosh, they gaslit, they did this, yes, they did. And you got to feel that, but then you got to tend your wound because they can't, even if they started to have the empathy to do it, they can't undo what they did. And that's the hard part. Another one, this one, probably one of my favorites to catch maybe is intellectualizing or analyzing when you're just thinking about rationalizing, saying intellectualizing, stuff like that, but you're never feeling your feelings. That's why I love doing the body work of where do you feel that? Because a lot of times it's, especially here in the West, we're like divorced from the head up. It's like there's nothing going on down there. You just don't feel, and your whole body is having like big experiences and you're not even noticing it. Another one, somaticizing. So this one is interesting where sometimes there's a true, when you can't feel feelings and work through, your body is going to start showing it. So that's why fibromyalgia is a huge one. Irritable bowel syndrome, there's different things that your body starts to have. And even bigger diseases are showing a lot of links with at least correlation. They can't necessarily do causation, but there's major correlation, like with, the people in the empath one specifically, and breast cancer specifically. There's a lot of just different research on things like that. I think that was one Gabor Mate talks about. But so sometimes there is a true, your body is feeling what your heart never got to release. Other times, this is something like you ask someone, they just had a major trauma happen. You're like, how you doing? They're like, I got a bit of a tummy ache. Oh, okay. You just lost this individual in a horrific accident. You got a tummy ache. Anything else? Like there's just no ability to name emotions. It's all just body stuff. So that's another good one. So again, just helpful categories. So to kind of just look through and see what are your tendencies. Again, I had no conscious awareness despite being a counselor for years, y'all. So it's such a process of learning this stuff and just really get to know your tendencies. And then when you do, whenever it gets low enough to just pause, allow the emotion to take up space. We'll talk more about how you do that because it's on a physiological and emotional level. It can be hard to create that space. So the next one, how many of you have seen the Inside Out movies? Okay, so okay. Highly recommend, and you might even have more appreciation after like doing this work, but these are some categories. So to create that movie, they actually consulted Richard Schwartz, who's the creator of the IFS theory, internal family systems, what it's called. So again, these categories, whatever resonates with you, I'm just going to pepper you with different things and you can see what resonates with you and puts words to things. So we can talk about these more in depth, but the firefighters, I want you to think they come in to put out the fire, right? So stress cleaning, so stressed out about somebody or something, so you stress clean your whole house. Okay, great. And you might need to do that as a helpful thing to get it to lower enough until you realize, oh, wait, okay, I'm stress cleaning because I was afraid that they were going to judge me because of, oh, okay, hold on, how do I face that and be okay with them judging? How do I cope with that? As an example. So firefighter is just anything to put out the fire. This is where addiction's huge. There is no such thing as an addict who doesn't have prior trauma. I don't care if your addiction is sugar or it's cocaine. There's just no such thing. There's just always a struggle to emotionally cope. Managers, the managers are the things that try to keep you from experiencing stuff. So these are things like chronic busyness can be a really hard one for people to recognize. This is actually your body is making unconscious decisions all the time because it's too much of a struggle to sit with hard things. And then the exiles, those are the parts of you that you have just relegated to like very far away from you because it's too painful to go there. So things like rejection, abandonment, those are two of the deeper wounds. Again, it's not even like there's major rejection wounds like adoption. There's a rejection abandonment wound, whether it's conscious in your cognitive memory or not. But there's also smaller ones like rejected every time you do something and your parent, even if that's all they give you is the look. And you immediately know, oh, I'm not safe, right? There's just all sorts of bigger little ways that happens. Shame is another big exile. So there's always just the really, really tender things inside of you are the exiles. So there's more, we can go into that more at a later date, but just so you kind of know the framework. Okay, so additional inappropriate, I call it wound treatment because I like to refer to emotional wounds as same as physical wounds. And I'll refer to this quite a bit, but there's different ways that you should not treat physical wounds. And it's the same thing with emotions. So for example, like if I had a wound that was like it was a sore, it had healed over, but then you could see it was like infected with like a bunch of pus underneath that. If I just kept covering it up, it stays infected, right? You actually got to lance it open, let out the pus. But a lot of times what we do is we like to suppress, we like to cover. We don't want to feel it because we don't know how, we were never given the tools, but then it stays sick. So that is really important to do for like lancing open a wound. But with other ones, by all means, if you're bleeding out, do stop the bleeding, right? You need to use a tourniquet. You've got to stop it until you can get stable enough to work through the healing. A nosebleed, you don't want to just keep bleeding. You want to actually stop up the blood. A broken bone, well, you might need to break and reset it to learn how to walk well. So there's different ways of treating emotions. These are poor ways, okay? This is like pouring gasoline on an infection, right? These are no-nos. So just as examples to give names, I see my font is off there. But okay, minimized, dismiss, mock, guilt, shame, judge, ignore, compare, punish, again, the intellectualize, analyze, lecture, unsolicited problem solving, unsolicited advice or fixing, abuse of any kind, gaslighting. So there's all sorts of different ways that when your emotion comes out, it's treated with that. And the trick is whatever patterns you probably do to yourself are probably what you also learned when you were little. We just got to take away the wooden spoon that you're now using to beat yourself with and realize, oh, I don't have to do that anymore. There's a different thing called compassion and comfort that I can actually access now. Okay. Next kind of analogy. So a healthy emotional pattern. So emotions, when you think of like a wave, when it comes on the beach, it crests, right? Like you've seen that beautiful white cap and then it crashes and then it recedes out to become normal again. So when that happens, it's the natural rhythm and natural process. What we do is we try to like dam it up. So we build all the sandbags to prevent it. And oftentimes what happens is later you hit a big adult crisis and there's a tidal wave, an absolute tsunami that breaches those sandbags and makes a big mess. And then it's not just that big adult trauma, it's everything you never had a chance to process and heal all hits you at the same time. So ideally we'll learn how do you ride the wave and be with the wave and let it crash and recede out because it will normalize, but we have to learn how to be with. So another, trying to look time-wise if we should just do that. Well, maybe I'll say it for now and we'll do an experiential like at a different date. But if you have a parent that's with you, let's say you're feeling some sort of sad emotion. If you have a parent that comes in, kind of like somebody said, the fragile parent comes in and you can tell they're like either going to feel bad because you feel something. There's an anxiety or there's a disconnect. There's some sort of that or they're mad about it. you're going to innately feel like it's not safe. But if they can be with the wave, they sit, their body is calm, they're in a regulated state, there's something innately that your body will feel, oh, it's safe to come up and out. Otherwise, I like to say it turtles when it just goes back in. And there's just so many subtle things. And now I can see it all the time with people or with kids where it's like, oh, they just turtled. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, I'm in rush mode right now. Okay. How do you calm your body first to create a felt sense of safety? Because it communicates in a nonverbal but powerful way. It's safe to come out. I can have space for that. Or if you don't have space, then you say, hey, I think you need some emotional space. I can tell I don't have that right now. Can we talk later? Right? So because sometimes we don't all have capacity 24/7, right? But when you have a parent that can do that, it teaches you, in my body, can also go, when emotions come up. I don't have to see it as a threat. Otherwise parents see it as like a spider end of the room. They're just trying to squash it and get rid of it, instead of like, no, I just got to be with it until it recedes and it will normalize and it's okay again. So allowing the climax and just consistent emotional resolution, that is how you just keep resolving over and over and over again. And we'll break it down more, but it's a natural rhythm. So this is a mentor of mine, love her stuff, Laura Duncan. She has a simple phrase where she says, feel your pain. We usually don't even do that. We're not taught to because it's not safe to. Feel the pain, feel comfort, go play. Or I add go rest, because sometimes after big emotions, you do need to go rest. But there is a natural wave. So I'll tell you, one of the first times I remember seeing some of these experiential just exercise for myself, I watched somebody walk an adult through an adult circumstance she was in capital E emotion, where it's hysterical, it's historical. It's automatically showing you, okay, she's showing up little right now in really, really big emotion. So I watched, might have been Laura or might have been somebody else at the time, but watched her work through what was being triggered and got to the memories of where she was a little girl with a very angry dad and feeling unsafe to actually vocalize anything. And once she kind of modeled how a different parent could have interacted, I watched the girl went from like utter sobbing, and it was like a windshield wiper. I mean, sobbing, hysterical crying, to boom, giddy laughter. So much so that she like couldn't control it. She's like, why am I laughing? I don't know why I'm laughing. This is weird. What's going on? She was just so bewildered, but she'd never felt the normal rhythm. And that's what happens. Like if you're with a kid, and they're upset because somebody just stole their toy, you don't talk them out of it. You don't problem solve. Well, here's another toy. Don't worry about it or stop it, or you shouldn't care about that anyway. Do you know how many other kids don't have toys in the world? All that stuff is just bad. But when you're with them with compassion, I'm so sorry. I wouldn't like it when somebody stole my toy either. Come here. You give a hug until their body goes. And then you'll see a kid just jump up. Well, I'm going to go play basketball, Jimmy. Okay. Have fun. It's just wild to watch it just boom, switch. But when they get the emotional need met, you abruptly switch into play mode. And that's when they got their need met. That's the rhythm. But so often we don't know how to be with it long enough to get that result. And that's where we just kind of land in suppressing. And then we have to all undo this stuff as adults. So another analogy, and something, again, I'll just return to these because I like using analogies to understand other contexts for the emotional labor of this work. But whenever you have like a soda bottle and you shake it up, shake, right? Or it's kind of like life, right? You get shaken up. There's so many emotions. They just never get a safe outlet. Sometimes in counseling, we can unscrew it and it is like you totally uncork the thing and it is a geyser of a mess, right? And that is actually what we don't want to do, because that can actually be unhealthy. You want to usually just unscrew a little bit, feel some of your emotion and get safe resolution. And then you screw it back on for the next moment. And once you do that enough, it actually dies down inside. We don't have this the anger that's just been sitting there. It's just kind of resolved over time because you've just gotten little bits of your needs met over and over and over again. So that's kind of the emotional healing journey, ideally. Sometimes there's a geyser and there is cleanup, and even these groups, sometimes we hit it. You don't necessarily know. That's okay. We can clean it up too. There's tools for that. But we want to try to do it in small increments to help you feel and build safety inside of you to feel, and then the confidence of I can feel it safely and be okay and not be met with all of the other stuff. Okay, well, any questions on like all of that material or anything stick out to you as like, oh, that's a pattern, or anything you want to hear me expound on more with any of that. Oh my gosh, I'm totally over. I don't know why I had my head, we're going till 8:30. Oh my, sorry. Oh, we are over. Okay. Oh, that is so funny. I don't know why I had that in my head. Well, how about we just pause there? And I was going to have you guys just do the homework this week. If I want you to just pay attention to your 4Fs, and anytime you're in a 4F, I want you to make a note of it. If you can actually write it down, it helps you stay with you. Yeah, so just any fight, flight, fawn, or freeze, notice it in yourself or in other people. I don't care if it's a TV screen or real life, just practice noticing. And yeah, I'm so sorry on the time thing. Feel free, anybody wave me in the future. I don't know why I had it in my head. I've usually done these as 2 hours. So I think that's why my time clock was like, we're not done yet. But we'll definitely end on time in the future. So, well, thank you guys so much for showing up. If you've got any other questions or things like that, feel free to email me. You've all got my email address, but thank you for coming today. And I encourage you, just if you've got at least a few minutes afterwards, take time to just kind of process what you felt throughout today. If you're a journaler, great. If you're a verbal processor, great. Or just take some time to just kind of reflect on anything that stuck out. The more you let it live inside of you, the more it keeps growing. So thank you guys for joining, and I'll see you again in 2 weeks.